Poet, novelist, political voice, and teacher, Chinua Achebe is regarded as one of the most influential figures in literature. His first novel, Things Fall Apart, is described by many as the first and most important work in African literature. Its author, the patriarch of the African novel. But who was Chinua Achebe?
Well, born Albert Chinua Lumogo Achebe on November 16, 1930, he was raised in the Igbo town of Ogidi in southeastern Nigeria and lived till March 21, 2013. He enrolled as a student at Central School in Nikedi, where his older brother taught, then was accepted at the prestigious Dennis Memorial Grammar School in Onitsha, and then the even more prestigious Government College in Umuahia. He taught at the Merchants of Light School at Oba, then worked for Nigerian Broadcasting Service, or NBS. His first book, Things Fall Apart, gained worldwide attention in the 1950s, and he also wrote No Longer at Ease in 1960, Arrow of God in 1964, A Man of the People in 1966, and Anthills of the Savannah in 1987. In 1975, he gave a lecture titled An Image of Africa, Racism in Conrad's Heart of Darkness, claiming Joseph Conrad is a thoroughgoing racist. The lecture was written in response to Heart of Darkness and was later published in the Massachusetts Review. He married Christy Okoli on September 10, 1960, and had a daughter named Chinelo and sons named Ikechukwu and Chidi. He was a supporter of Biafran independence when Biafra broke away from Nigeria, and his novels focused on the traditions of the Igbo society, and he was titled Igbo Chieftain. He served as a professor at Brown University from 2009 till his death, and an interesting fact is that Nelson Mandela found comfort in Achebe's writings while he was in prison.
Chinua Achebe has been a prominent public figure in Nigeria since the 1950s, and it is evident that his personal experiences come at a parallel with his writing. His early sympathetic and forgiving portrayals of traditional Igbo culture are considered by some as gestures toward compensating for the guilt he felt for his academic privileges. Some of his values and beliefs? In a nutshell, Achebe establishes a human context of understanding modern Nigerian history. After his experience teaching in America, Achebe was shocked and disappointed to find that the most widely taught book which depicts African culture was Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Achebe became more aware of the extent to which Americans and Europeans misunderstand African culture and ignore the African perspective. Achebe's goal is to correct the stereotypes and prejudices that European literature had on Africans. He values the Igbo culture and other pre-colonial tribes, and does not believe that they were primitive or savage. Achebe strives to communicate the human complexity of Nigerian existence, to establish the independence of African literature, and to demonstrate the value of traditional Igbo culture. Achebe claims that African peoples did not hear of culture for the first time from Europeans, that their societies were not mindless, that they had poetry, and above all, they had dignity. Despite his respect for Igbo culture, he does not believe that these cultures and tribes can survive in the modern world. Achebe merely wants to portray the coexistence of Igbo culture with European and Western civilization. Achebe aims to eradicate stereotypes and denies that Africa, as Conrad states, was the heart of darkness. He wanted to show the Igbo perspective of colonization and the universally human side of the story. Achebe decided to write in English instead of his native Igbo, which opened him to the charge that he was assisting in the demise of Igbo culture. However, it did allow him to reach a worldwide audience, and over 3 million copies of Things Fall Apart have been sold. Achebe values the art of language, and he often mixes literary English, pidgin English, and a colloquial English that approximates the rhythms of Igbo speech. He mixes Igbo proverbs, songs, and rituals with allusions to European literature. Achebe despises authoritarianism, and this is evident in his fiction. He associates inflexible refusal to recognize the validity of multiple viewpoints, which is the central flaw of his protagonists, with the cultural arrogance of colonial powers.
What does Chinua Achebe have to say about his novels? Well, when he read books like Heart of Darkness, Achebe would side with the European characters. The African people were portrayed as incapable. The white man was good and reasonable and intelligent and courageous. The savages that raided against them were sinister and stupid. I hated their guts. A direct quote from Chinua Achebe himself. He wrote novels that countered the European novels, which portrayed Africans as primitive, incapable of social development, and lacking linguistic skill. He wrote Things Fall Apart as an example of man's cruelty towards each other and to depict the disastrous effects of colonization on a society's culture. The title comes from William Butler Yeats' poem, The Second Coming.